It's about time because we're going there. It's about that time and we're going there, friends. I'm your host, Bianca, and I am joined with the co-host with the mostest.
Oh, hello.
Yes, Lauren, thank you so much for being part of the show.
My pleasure.
Okay, so this season has been really different because it's not just me doing the interviewing, it's you interviewing me, it's us dialoguing about interviews that we've had this season.
Oh my gosh, so fun talking through these topics together.
Yes.
I just love it.
And I get to interview you on your skill set, your strong skill set. And you and I have had multiple conversations about the mind shifts that we need as our life evolves and changes. And so one of the conversations and one of the questions that we've discussed, but that other people, podcast listeners, has brought up as well, is friendship. How to maintain, how to grow, how to find friends. And so we're going to discuss friendship for a season, friendship for a reason, or friendship for a lifetime. Ooh, let's get the episode started.
I love it. And the thing that I actually love about this topic is that we focus grouped. What are some ideas that people are really wanting to talk through, work through, need inspiration, need just like candid conversation? And female friendships, hands down, was at the top of the list. And since we were already doing this season, it's like we could not do an episode devoted to friendships.
Absolutely. One of the things that I want us to hold on to, and I want to lead with tension.
She's leading with tension?
Yes.
Okay.
Is this idea and concept, which it has to be said in not just female friendships, but male friendships as well, you can't take everyone with you.
Mm-hmm.
All of us are going to a destination, but not everyone is supposed to come with us. One of the key concepts that we will spend time later on in the episode, but anyone who has gone through a Bible study with me or have done curriculum with me, I am big on this concept of casual friends, close friends, and core friends. And this has been super helpful in me trying to figure out who is coming with me.
Yeah.
So before we go there, I think we need to let people know a little bit of, I'm not going to say our tumultuous start, but our honest start.
It was like a mirror. It was just like, it was like, there's nothing like super jazzy about it. And then now it's evolved.
I will say, when we first met.
Be real.
Okay, here we go. So I led a trip called Footsteps of Paul, and we went to
her Bible boyfriend.
My Bible boyfriend, Paul the Apostle, and I taught through different biblical passages in the places that Paul had planted churches. So we went to Colossae, and that's where the letter of Colossians was written. And then we went to Ephesus, also known as Kusadasi in Turkey. And that's
now you're just showing up.
You were with me.
I was, but okay.
But that was the very first time that we met. And when I planned a trip, I didn't go with the intention of like, oh, gee, I'm going to find someone who I'm really going to connect with.
Leading a trip. Yeah.
Leading a trip. And yet we connected on such a beautiful level. But I later on found out you actually didn't think I liked you. Or wait. I don't want to put your words in your mouth. What did you feel?
Okay, so we started randomly, like I just talking on the bus. I ended up sharing things with you. You were sharing things with me. We were just like sort of jiving, but everyone, of course, loves Bianca. And so all the people around the trip are always trying to talk to you and whatever. And so there's this thing in me because I don't know if I'm an emotionally healthy Enneagram 8. Just want to make sure that's clear. But there was something in me that was like, if everybody loves her, then I don't want to love her. And so I was just like, no, she doesn't like me. And it's like, I don't really like her. And it's fine. But like, respect. And then like, we move on. So stupid.
But you weren't, to clarify, because I don't want you to paint yourself to be like mean or a brat. You weren't mean. But
no,
like, both of us were just like, I mean, I liked you and I wanted to get to know you so much so that we remained in contact post the trip.
We did. And this is one of the things that I love. And this is what I think is something that's essential and a takeaway about friendships is that there always needs to be someone that's going to make the bridge. Someone's got to take the leap. Like someone has to be the one that's like, hey, I may be rejected, but you are interesting enough to me. There's something about you that has potential. And so someone always has to take the leap. And I feel like with us, you actually the one that took a leap on me.
Well, I think this is a great place to start the podcast because I have said this so many times because I have discussed openly at church and on this podcast the power of friendship and the power of community.
It's so good.
So the mind shift is, what if you are the friend that you would like to have? I've lived by that. And so instead of me waiting around for someone to come and seek friendship with me, I decided I'm going to be the person that's going to seek out friendship with other people.
Yes.
And so did I think that we were going to be as close as we are today? No. Did I think that we were going to travel internationally? No. Did I think that you were going to walk me through such a really, really dark and heavy season? No. But I decided, hey, this is somebody that I could see myself being in relationship with. And at the very least, I like stimulating conversations with you. You're an Enneagram 8. I love a good challenger. Give me the conversation, poke holes, tell me where I'm wrong. And here we are 8 years later.
So crazy.
Doing life together.
And we're essentially, though, inverted because you're a 7-wing 8. I'm an 8-wing 7. And so we bring all these things to the table. And one of the things I think I look back and I valued so much on my friendship with you is I talked about in an earlier episode how being raised by a single mom, we had to move from place to place. So I had to quickly learn not to fear going to go make the friend. Like, people weren't coming to me and picking, like, wanting to hang out with me, the new girl. I wasn't the one being invited to the parties. I had to learn how to be the one who asked. And so I think there was this thing in me that just kind of got a little jaded. So like if I'm on vacation, I went a Footsteps with Paul like trip, there was something in me that was like, I'm just gonna go off. I don't want to keep being the one to like, I was actually more quiet on the bus, like with people. I wasn't as engaging as I normally am. And it was you. And you're the one that was like, hey, there's something here. I'm gonna invest in it and see what gives. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then now there's just been this give and take and investment in each other back and forth, high and low for 8 years.
I hope that you're okay with me mentioning this. I mean, the title of the show is We're Going There.
We're going there.
But you were also in a very difficult season.
Yeah.
And so I think it's worth noting that even in moments that feel hard, you could still show up to be a good friend.
Yes.
And though you are an emotionally healthy Enneagram 8 today, even when maybe you weren't at your most healthiest and you weren't at your strongest or your best, you still possessed a lot of really good friend qualities. And so let's kind of hover around this and let's start here, because maybe someone is in a season that they don't feel maybe their strongest or their best. That doesn't mean that they're unworthy of friendship or unworthy of love.
Yeah.
So the mind shift that I want us to talk about is maybe an evaluation, or what does friendship look like for you in this season? It was much different. You're a different person than you were 8 years ago. So what does friendship look like for you in one of the healthiest seasons I've seen you walk in for a really long time?
Yeah, it's so good. I think at that point, and you're actually the one that introduced it to me, this idea of that core and that casual, the core, close and casual friendships. And I've said it a lot to friends and people, family in my life, and they're always like, savage, like you're putting people in categories, like what? And I'm like, no, it doesn't sound as vicious as it maybe sounds at first. It's this idea of like, we're all so tired. We all have so much going on. We only have so much time. We have limited resources. And so I feel like there's this concept that like, do people really know how to be a good friend? Let alone, do people know how to be a good friend when they're stressed, when they're tired, and they're already busy with their to-do list?
Right.
And so I think for me in this season where so much is going on in my career and so much is going on in my family and so much is going on in my marriage, and I'm constantly on the road traveling with clients and whatnot. And it's this idea of friendship in this season to me are the ones that will intentionally pursue me, even if I'm not pursuing them, or friendships that have proven that they know me well enough and don't expect anything in return. So when I'm in this busy season right now, the friends that are like, hey, I know you have a big day at work, or I know you have a big conversation going on, or I know you're lifting something today. I want you to know I'm praying for you and no need to respond, but you're thought of. Or, hey, I'm leaving you a voicemail. I'm checking in on you and I love you. Like, the friends that are doing the investment just really means a lot to me right now. And those are those core friends. And sometimes there are those close friends that come in as well. And it's a great laugh. Like, I love, there's those friends that just you want to like laugh with. And you say, and they just are like, let's go out to dinner, and you're just laughing with them. They give you joy. That's great. So I think I'm just looking through these things of people who can intentionally pursue and not expect something in return. While also in that season, by also knowing that I've done plenty of investment into them, where they know that I have taken care of them in those seasons. And then secondly, just feeling known. I think there's a beauty in a friendship where they just know you. Like, I remember I had actually gone to a therapy intensive because as you all know, we love intensives at this point.
Therapy.
I was at an intensive, and each day you simply texted me saying, know that I'm thinking of you. I'm praying for you. No need to respond.
Yeah.
Here for you if you need me. Next day, like, love you. If you need to talk, I'm here. No need to respond. And like, that just gave me the leeway to know that in this season of busyness, I don't have to like go text back, and there wasn't an expectation. Yeah. But at the same time, you were thinking of me, you were checking, and you were pursuing. I just think that's really valuable for me. What about you?
So I can't take credit. It was Will Gadara, who was the operational manager at One Madison South in New York City, and he wrote a book, Unreasonable Hospitality. And
So good. I love it.
I love the value of hospitality and being hospitable and in showing up for you in the way that you have shown up for me. I decided that you were going to be in a therapy intensive. There's a lot to unpack emotionally, and sometimes we just don't have capacity for it. But I wanted you to know that I'm going to show up for you, period. So as we continue on, I think now's a great time where I want to pause and talk about casual, core, and close. So we're familiar with that language because you and I have openly discussed that. I'm going to invite all the podcast listeners now in to discuss how I have categorized this. I've preached about it at church. I've written about it in my books, How to Have Your Life Not Suck. I'm passionate about relationships. And okay, so a casual friend is someone on the tertiary side of your life. So there's primary, secondary, and tertiary, like first, second, and third. Think of this as, I like dashed lines because sometimes friends will move in and out of different categories. So the lowest level is a casual friend. Now, this is somebody that maybe your kids go to the same school, you see each other at sporting events, maybe you follow each other on social media, and occasionally at a kid's birthday or a play date, you will connect with that person. There's some synergy, there's some good laughs, it's very amicable, it's lovely. There is a low level investment and a low level of need, but you just like being around each other, and that is a casual relationship. Then you have a close friendship. This is where maybe you would see each other at church. Maybe you're in a small group or community group, whatever, connect group, whatever language you might have. But you're seeing this person on more of a monthly basis, whether that's at church or a spiritual community or a tennis club, some sort of visual with regularity. You not only follow each other on social media, you might even go out on dates with couples or with other friends. And there's a level of greater responsibility to bear each other's burdens, while not being responsible for that person.
I like that distinction.
Right?
I like that distinction about responsibility. Yeah.
So then, but then we take it to
so there's varying level of responsibilities with each. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I love that.
And then is the final, which is core. Now, science will show that, and data will show that only 1 out of 10 people feel like they have a close friend.
That is 10%.
That's 10%.
Yeah.
It's 10%.
Wow.
And only 13% of all people, according to Gallup, feel like they have a close community of friends. So what we see, and we just listened to that episode with Simon Sinek and Trevor Noah.
Yeah.
And Trevor Noah or Noah Trevor?
I actually was so confused. I know. Yeah.
Noah Trevor?
No.
Well, we'll fix it. Okay, great. So they had this intense conversation, and they said that the most critical need right now in culture isn't finances, isn't the economy, isn't politics, it's friendship. And so I've really fought, and you've really fought to articulate and define the core. Realistically, most people cannot maintain more than 3 to 4 core people in life. Now, these are the people that you talk to regularly, you text, you go out to dinner, you might even travel with them. You might go to the same community of faith. And if you don't, even if they're at a distance, you're making a huge investment in maintaining a relationship. Not only are they pouring into you, but you are pouring into them. There is a level of responsibility that we should care for our core friends. Now, this is where it gets a little muddled. There are times where you feel like somebody is your core friend, but they don't view you as your core friend. So in this episode, as we're talking, it is wildly important. I'm going to encourage all of our listeners, do a friend audit.
Yes.
Like literally with a piece of paper and a pen, list out all your friends and then put core, close, or casual. I mean, think wide, even think those that you follow on social media, because what you discover in doing a friend audit is that you might have somebody in the place of a core that has not shown up with you with their responsibility to be a core friend. And you feel yourself let down by them and you can't figure out why.
Yeah.
It's because they no longer are maintaining that responsibility or the care or concern to love you at a core level. That doesn't mean that they're bad. That doesn't mean that they don't want to be your friend. In this season, they no longer could sit in the seat of a core friend. They go down to a casual friend. And if they still can't engage or give you what you need, I love that we started with, hey, Lauren, what do you need?
Yeah.
Because I also learned in listening to you, I want to be more intentional in knowing your work schedule and flow. Previously, you worked for Accenture, which is a huge organization, a global organization. You were working 70, 75, 80 hours a week. You were traveling all the time. I knew that you weren't going to kick it on the phone with me and send all these voice memos. Now you're in a different season of life, and we've done the hard yards, and I could show up for you differently by supporting what you need in this season. When we do our friend audit, we have to be okay with moving somebody from one role to the other. So when we travel together, And we started following each other on social media after Greece. And we actually, the following year, all of us decided that we were going to travel again. We loved how we each other
went to
traveled.
Italy, yeah.
We traveled the next year. The next year, I led a trip, all roads lead to Rome. And we taught through the book of Romans at all these locations, going all the way from, like, if I'm not mistaken, Venice to Rome, or Florence to Rome. I can't remember. And we were casual friends at that point. But then we really took it to another level when we became like close friends.
Yes.
We started engaging in each other's lives. That's when I think we were following each other on social media.
Yeah.
We would talk with more regularity, more frequency.
And during that time, this is something that I remember you telling me, and you elaborate more, because again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you said something to me then during this time where I feel like you helped us get to casual. And then I feel like I helped lead us to close, because I remember we were being casual, and I remember being in Italy, and we were kind of like just walking around, and I remember saying something and sharing something that was a little bit more vulnerable. And I was like, I don't know, I'm going to risk like sharing something that is vulnerable. And she could reject it. She could think I'm weird. She could judge me, whatever. And I remember you pausing and you looking at me, and you literally said that I give people the power of going second.
Oh, yes.
Talk about that. Cause I think that was like I was like, what does that mean? But tell them what you said.
So what I hear you say is, it was, and I want to be careful, but it was basically like a test. Mm-hmm. Can this person emotionally hold? Yes. Can they hold what I'm about to give them?
Yeah.
And I love that evaluation, because it's almost, when we're evaluating our friends, we're not testing them, but we're seeing what of me can you handle?
Yeah.
And when you told me this very heavy thing, I was so taken back by your honesty, your transparency, and your vulnerability, which showed me that you trust me, is that I told you, Lauren, you give people permission to go second.
Yes. And then you shared something that was equally going through. And so we were able to then hold each other's heaviness, and then we had intimacy, because then we were both met in that same spot. Now, I think it's hard, because sometimes, and let's not be cute, like there's plenty of times where I have done that, and I have been vulnerable with someone and they didn't hold it. Okay,
right,
cool. We'll stay casual friends. Like, now I know that we can't go to that next level. And there's times where I'm sure you've done the same, where you like try to test a relationship to see if it can go further, and maybe it didn't. But I think like that's a really practical way to just like, I'm going to give something that's vulnerable. I think you can't go far without sacrifice. I feel like you can't go, investment is sacrifice. So,
and there's risk.
And there's always risk. And with risk, there's always vulnerability. So it's like, what are you willing to be vulnerable with? Like, what costs are you willing to pay for the potential gain of this person?
Yes. So number one, you're hearing us say that we need to do a friend audit.
Yes.
And really do a list of casual,
like
close,
write them down.
100%. Yeah. Then help me with the language, because it's not testing somebody. It's not like testing a friend, but it's maybe like being open to be vulnerable, to see if somebody could handle what you need out of that friendship. Is that fair to say?
I feel like I think it's a tool. I think it's a useful tool that you can use to help you identify who are some people that are worth, like, there's a person I remember, her name was Alice, and I thought that she was really interesting, and I kind of did the same thing where I was like, she's engaging. I would love to, maybe we're casual friends. Maybe we could be close. I remember sharing something with her, and she really like judged me and shamed me for what I said. And so I was like, oh, okay, like no problem. Then I instantly retreat. And so I just automatically knew, like, her and I, like, to this day, like, casual friends, and we've talked about it. Like, now it's like she knows about this conversation, whatever. But it was just something like, oh, we now know, like, we're going to stay casual. And I just think that's important. But again, it's a tool that you can use to help evaluate where certain people in your life may be.
And I want to just give one more like practical handle for someone to hold on to. It's not even really a handle. It's more of like a tip, or if we want to use a language tool, is that friendship requires risk. And if you are not willing to risk, you can't complain about not having friends. Friendship requires risk. And that risk also includes recognizing that somebody no longer fits in your life, that nobody is pacing like you're pacing. That might sound savage to some, but we can stay in dysfunctional relationships. I say this from experience. We can stay in dysfunctional relationships out of loyalty and have it stop our destiny. And I hate to say that there's two friendships specifically where I outgrew them. Yes. They did not want to grow anymore.
We need to talk about outgrowing friendships. Like, that's real.
Okay.
Like, what? Because that's, I mean, like, when you have a friendship and one of you is growing and the other isn't.
Yeah.
What do you do with that? Like, can you give an example? Like, walk us through, like, what did you do if you're growing and the other friend isn't, what happens?
So I've openly admitted this season on the podcast that I think I stay too long.
Yes.
So I'm just going to lead. I'm going to lead with that weakness. And what I've learned in looking back notably at several really significant relationships in my life. I'm talking about professionally, I'm talking about personally, and I'm talking about romantically. I am a loyalist, and I will accept bad behavior because I don't want to lose a friend or lose a relationship or lose a job. And so I had to come to the hard realization that it's no longer based on what people say. I have to trust their actions.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking about 3 significant relationships. One was within work, one was in a friendship, and then one was romantic, where I realized that though they had said I am a person of value or I bring value, how they treated me and how they spoke to me proved otherwise.
Yeah.
So for me, in evaluating on whether or not I've outgrown a relationship, is sometimes there's 2 big things. One, I realized that they were never going to cut me, and I had to cut myself. So I remember sitting across, I was friends with this person for about 10 years. I wrote about this in my second book, How to Have Your Life Not Suck. Really, really close to this person. And it felt like the more that I loved this person, the more resented I was. And I just realized that my life was growing. That's when I started writing more, and I was stepping into traveling and speaking, and we were about to launch the church. There was a lot going on, and my life was growing, and they just did not want to, they didn't want to change.
Yeah.
And as someone who is action oriented, as someone who loves growth and development, I realized that my growth was a rub against them. But I didn't know. I didn't know. So I was trying harder. The more that I tried, the more it grated on them. And I finally got to the point where I had to make the decision. And we literally had kind of like a breakup, and it was a friendship.
Yeah,
it was like a breakup.
Breakup friendships are real.
It's so
They're
hard.
so real.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
And I sat across from her. I was like, oh, you just don't like. And it was
So you're
sad
saying
reality.
there was almost like your friendship you found was actually just going through the motions. Because I think that's a big
Yes.
thing as well, is that we maintain or go through the motions with friendships, that like when we had these friends when we were in high school, when we were in
Yes.
college, when we were at this last job, but then we
Yes.
realized, wait, was it a proximity friendship? Because this
that's
friendship
great, yeah.
doesn't last because I'm not working there anymore, but then I'm trying to make it still work. And so I think identifying the friendships that are just going through the motions, and I forget where I saw this, but I love this, the way that they broke this down, where it's this weed, flower, or a tree. And tree is like an investment. Like those are the ones where the roots are deeply like built, and lasts over time. They last through seasons. They last through winter and summer and all the highs and lows. And then there's the flower friendships that are like the seasonal, that they bring life and they bring beauty and they bring joy. And sometimes like I look back, I was working at this massive city regional publishing company, and I had such wonderful friends. It was like it was slightly Devil Wears Prada, but it also was like, it was just so fun. And I built these great relationships. But I remember some that I thought they were going to make it outside of my time there didn't. And some have, and they've become trees in my life, but some were just flowers. Like they were just meant for this season, and that's okay. I think like seasonal friendships, we need to like let go of the maintaining ones that no longer serve us or are no longer holding value or are no longer aligned with us, and just honor the flowers of that season, like honor the friendships that were for a season. And then the last one is, I think there's weeds. Like to your point, when there's some friendships like, no, this needs to end. Like this is a weed and it has to be uprooted. So I like that. You know, like the weed, the flower, and the tree. I like that. Yeah.
I think that goes with the overarching narrative. Is it a reason, a season, or a lifetime?
Exactly.
And this goes back to the friend audit. My hope is that the listeners
everyone does a friend
audit.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, tag your friends on social media when we do clips from this episode, because we're nosy folk and we want to know what friends are you sharing with this podcast community. Okay, so let's talk about the trees, quote unquote, in our lives. How do you maintain strong relationships? So again, this is going to be different for everyone.
Yeah.
But with you, you are a high capacity leader. You have a very demanding job. You were married. You are very close to your mom and your sister, plus your network, plus people from church, plus friends from college. Like you have a robust network. How are you maintaining connections with them, and how are you investing in friends?
I mean, I wish I had like a really glamorous response. I mean, it's work. And I think it's also prioritizing, which is why the friendship audit is so important. So for me, I have to take a look and be like, what are the trees in my life? What are the core people in my life? And so they get my first fruits. They get my time that's like, okay, when I look at my phone and I come out of a 3-hour meeting, and if I have 72 text messages, which is usually the case, I genuinely, like, this is just the case. I look through and it's like, does mama need something? Does Melanie, my sister, need something? Like, does hubby need something? Like, I look through, and that's where my time will go first. Then some of the other friendships are more of the flowers and their and so I have to, again, it sounds savage, but I prioritize my time because that's the only way I can do so. And like, again, this idea of investment is work. And so the people in my life that I love and that I have a couple of friendships where, not a couple, a lot, most of my friends are moms. So they have lots of kids, little babies running around, and they're beautiful. And I'm Auntie Lo, and I love it. And it's great. But I don't have any children right now. So it's completely different seasons.
Yes.
And so that's been something really difficult to kind of navigate, where it's like, I have to be okay that, so-and-so may not be able to go out on a Friday night and go grab a drink at this new restaurant downtown, or come with me on a trip like they used to. But they also need to be okay that I don't always want to meet them at 9 a.m. at their house in their kids' playroom. And so there's this balance of like, okay, how can we merge together our different time schedules, our different priorities, our different values? And I think the ones that have lasted are the ones that are like, I see you and I get you and I'm for you, whatever season that you're in, and we are willing to adapt to make it work. The ones that are like, no, I'm not going to adapt. You need to do this during my time. And if you don't, like, you're not being a good friend. Those are the ones that don't last. Adapt or die. Like, genuinely, like, adapt or die. I mean, it's just true. If you're growing, which you and I are constantly always growing, and people are in different seasons. So I think adaptability, work, it's a lot of work. And I think investing in the people that are in your friendship audit.
What I'm hearing is intentionality.
Yeah.
Like overarching it, all that. Like listening to you. I think whether it's you and I are 3 hours apart in our time zone. So we best stay connected with the voice memos because our life is so crazy that we're in between meetings or we're in between driving.
Also, we talk a lot and we talk fast. So voice memos are so much better than text messages.
Absolutely. Basically, podcast episode. You know, welcome to my TED Talk. 8-minute voice memo later.
I know, it's awesome.
But it's not just you. I realize that the people that I run best with and the people that I'm pacing with are all we move very fast. And so one of my closest friends, Melanie, travels for work. She tours the world, and she is a singer. And so I was very intentional. She was going through a hard season of her life. And the way that I like to show up for you is the way that I like to show up for her. And so we would be intentional to have early morning walkie-talkies. So I would intentionally—
I love that walkie-talkie.
So cute. Yeah. So I would set my alarm for about 4:45. And then
in the morning?
Yes.
This is something that we're so not aligned in. Like, we're so not aligned. Okay.
So I would wake up early and I would be walking on the street by like 5:10, 5:15, knowing that it was about 1 o'clock for her. Now, and then we would spend an hour to an hour and a half just catching up. And we would do that at least once a week. She was going through a very hard time. I was going through a hard time. We wanted to show up for each other. So I was intentional about that. In our relationship, because you live in Detroit and I live in California, which everyone needs to know, you're actually a California girl.
Thank you. I was going to clarify.
You were trafficked outside to Detroit. No, just kidding.
So drama. Oh my God.
You were abducted
married
from
a
California.
California girl, grew up in California until I was in my early 20s, and then married a Michigan boy.
And now you're in Detroit.
Oh my gosh.
But I mean, just today, before we started a podcast, I booked my next flight to go visit you. So I'm being very intentional. What has that cost me?
Exactly.
It has cost me that I no longer have casual friends.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wait, I haven't heard you say this.
I know. I just recently, probably in the last year, I don't have a lot of time this season.
Exactly, yeah.
And I also am being very cautious about who I'm letting into my world and speak into my world. And so I no longer have time to maintain, I don't want to kiki with nobody and just for kicks and giggles. I really don't. I want to have meaningful relationships.
So it's back to the intentionality thing.
Absolutely.
So when you do have time, it's time, intention, work.
And I'm intentionally not spending time with people because I would rather invest my time in my close friends and my core friends.
Yeah. So
I think that relationships look like for me in doing a friend audit, actually removing a whole element of people that I would rather double down and be available for my close and casual friends.
Yeah. And I think like when we're talking about these ideas of the voice memos, booking the flights, adjusting our schedules again. Like if it's usually best for me on a Friday night, and for my other friends, it's like, no, mornings are best at a coffee date. It's like, okay, these are things that we have to think about on how we build and maintain relationships. When we think about our significant others, we have date nights. When we think about our families, we have planned family vacations. And I just think that sometimes we can get a little lazy or sloppy, or dare I say even entitled with our friendships. They are relationships. And I even think that way. Side note, and I should get brownie points because I want to talk about Jesus in this for a second, is that like even in quiet time, like God yearns for relationship and friendship and intimacy with us. And so often when we like read the Bible, it's like we got to go do it as it to do. But instead, if we look at time with him, whether it's reading the Bible or prayer walking or whatever, it's relationship. And we do that with intention because we want to invest in our relationship with the Lord. We want to grow in relationship with the Lord. We have date nights with our partners because we want to grow in relationship. We have family vacations because we want to have fun and get closer together. But then like friendships, what? Like, you know what I mean? I just feel like there's such a massive gap there. And so identifying practical, realistic ways that you can maintain and build relationships that using this language goes into your core and goes into your close specifically is really important.
So what happens, since you are a conflict resolution expert and you are big on developing people, not just because it's your job, but I do believe it's your calling. You're really, really good at it. So
you just like casually dropped that. Okay.
Well, I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
You do a really good job. I've not only just witnessed it as a friend, but having gone through as a client, you've done a really, really good job at helping people navigate sticky situations. So for somebody who is out there, who is in a sticky situation and evaluating on whether or not they need to work on this relationship and save this relationship, or have their current relationship move and downgrade to maybe from a core to a close or a close to a casual, how do we even begin? Where do we begin? Yeah. What do we say? What do we do to initiate this really hard conversation? So conflict management experts.
Oh gosh.
Where do we begin?
Well, I think even outside of like conflict management, I think it comes down to like, what price are you willing to pay to reap a gain? And so for me, for example, I'll give a very specific example. I have a core friend who we went through varying seasons where life changes, we have different priorities, and we got farther and farther and farther apart over the years. Now, of course, it's like if they needed anything, we both know we'd be there for each other. If there was an emergency, like we know we love each other so much. But the intimacy and the depth was waning. And it was so sad because this was one of my core people. I had to decide, do I bring this up or do I just let it go? And ultimately, I had to figure out, is it worth possibly breaking a relationship to bring up my hurt and my concerns about where we're at? And I think you first have to ask yourself, like, what is the price you're willing to pay to have an honest conversation that will either A, invest and strengthen your relationship, or potentially break it? And I think you have to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, what is the price I'm willing to pay? Now, for me, with the limited time like we're talking about, and my life already changing and our seasons already out of alignment, this person is still worth fighting for to me. But it required me having to get to the point where I was like, I'm going to be honest and maybe rejected, or we share a circle of friends. What if they all get mad at me? What if I ruin everything? And that was a lot of cost. Like I risked a lot.
That's a lot.
But she, to me, was worth a lot. The hope of what we could be is worth a lot. So this was a very specific example. I was just like, hey, I've noticed you distancing yourself for a while. I feel like I'm investing. I'm sending a lot of voice memos. I'm contacting you. You're not really responding, or if you do, it's really high level. And so I was like, let's just meet. I love you and let's meet. Now, anyone who knows me is kind of like, okay, but they're also like excited because they know there's going to be like some sort of conversation. And we just ended up I just was like, talked about very practically how much I love her, how much I miss her, how much I believe in us, how I'm, I'm dramatic, but it's true. I'm like, when I die and if I have a funeral, I want you to be so close in my life that people don't even question whether you're going to give a speech. They'll just assume, what speech are you going to give on Lauren? Like, I don't want you to just be someone in the masses. I want you to be someone that's going to go speak. That's how much I love you and how much I want to ride or die with you and how much I want to invest. But do you feel that way about me? And I had to ask that question. And then she started crying. She's like, yeah, I do. And so then there's this idea of, okay, great. So now what's your perspective? Because clearly what's going on right now isn't working. So what do we need to do to repair it? Now that we both know we want the same thing, what can we do practically to start repair? And so then that comes down back and forth between the person. And so we kind of shared what each other's needs were. We shared where we were both hurt. And we just had the bravery to have the conversation because that friendship was worth it.
So as we were kind of like wrapping up the episode, I do think it bears spending a little bit of time on what do we do when we know a relationship has ended? How do you say goodbye to a friend? What does mourning look like? And this sounds very, most of the podcast has been on the hope perspective because, we're intentional. We invest. We do a friend audit. We be the friend that we want to have.
We do the voice memos.
We do the voice memos.
Yeah.
We book the flights. Right. But there does come a point where a relationship might end.
Yeah. And that it can actually be looked at as healthy.
Okay. So, but I also think that instead of teetering on this could be good, I want to sit with what happens when a relationship does need to end. And the mourning that is required in letting go of that friendship. So I don't know. Have you had to? Because I know I have. I could speak with clarity on this.
Yes, I have one. Yeah.
Not just that significant one from that we had a relationship for 10 years, but there was another one, a very significant one. It was a different type of relationship. But I have a pattern. That's my type. Okay, so my type includes somebody who I allow to bring in negative behavior and I just let it go. Well, it got to the point where it was no longer healthy. It wasn't healthy for either of us. Okay. And
wait, can we pause with that real quick?
Yeah.
How do you define what's healthy in a friendship? I know that's a big question because you can relate it to partnership, whatever, but it's be practical. Some people, and when we did the focus group, one of the main questions people were asking is, how do I know if I should be ending this or not? How did you know it was unhealthy? Okay, so now I just have, it's very layered and it's complicated. It can be different for everyone, but I think the number one thing that for me works in determining the health of a relationship is, do we bring out the best in each other? That's number one. I love that.
And if the answer is no to from either perspective, it's not a good relationship. It's not a good relationship.
Yeah.
If you find yourself being short, if you find yourself that there's comparison, if you find someone speaking negatively to you, if you feel like there's usury, if you feel like there's just this constant bickering, that is not a healthy relationship for you, especially when it's for friendship.
Totally.
You're investing time, energy, talent, love.
And friendship's a choice.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not family, you're not marriage. Yeah,
right. You don't have to be in this. Where I think that there is loyalty in family and there's definitely a mandate for marriage. You stick it out, you fight, you work on this. Friendship is a little bit different. Yeah. And so we don't have to be in toxic relationships, but sometimes we would rather be circulating and circling the drain in a toxic relationship.
Alone, which goes back to our very first episode of the whole season, 100%. Where it's culturally and society says, if you're alone, something's wrong with you. So we stay in these unhealthy relationships, going through the motions, knowing we're not bringing out the best in each other and feel away because...
And I'm going to give a resource because this is a huge, I'm going to say an answer. I'm going to say a handle. And I'm going to say something that someone can hold on to. But if we don't know how to build this, then we're going to stay in the same pattern. The number one thing to protect yourself in relationships, romantic, platonic, and work relationships, is having good boundaries. Mm-hmm. That's a whole other podcast for another day. So I'm going to tell somebody they need to pick up Lisa Turker's book, Good Boundaries and Goodbyes.
And a highlighter because, oh my gosh, that whole book.
Absolutely.
Actually, the whole book was just highlighted.
It's also a podcast that can go back into this podcast files. We're going there, interview with Lisa Turker's Good Boundaries and Goodbye. It's great. I also recommend that we do a deep dive in her book. I loved her book. It was really, really good. But if we don't have good boundaries, we will remain in toxic relationships. Yeah. So you've walked through. So for me, I literally had to say, if we continue on a relationship, it's going to change by it looking like this.
Yeah.
And then they had they had a choice on whether or not they can respond, and they chose not to.
Exactly.
It was painful and it hurt and I mourned.
It's a breakup.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so what did
oh my gosh, so horrible. This person, literally my best friend in college, we were so close for 9 years that I ended up moving to Michigan during this point. They were in my bridal party. It was literally sister is my maid of honor and then this person. And we were just so close. But the different seasons of me getting married, of me moving, of them living across the country, of them not being married, just different things happening. We did not stand the test of time. 2 separate points after over almost a decade. We would come in and out of each other's lives trying to make it work, where she would come fly to me and I would come meet her. And we tried to make it work. And I was hopeful. This is the sad part. I think just again, when you're trying to make a relationship, when you're dating and you break up, but then you're oh, maybe there's potential. And so we come back again. And so we did this yo-yo for a while where it just was we are not well together. To your point, we just were not well. And so we had this massive blow up together where neither of us could see the other person's viewpoint whatsoever. And I just wrote an email being like, this is how I feel. This is what I need to feel safe. Like, what do you need? And they were just like, have a good life. And I was like, okay. And I had to sit in that hurt and that rejection while also knowing that like she was probably braver than I was.
Wow. Listen, I am walking away with new things that I've learned about you and also new things that I've learned about relationships. I just want to get better. I want to tell you that I want to be a better friend to you, and not just to you, but even to our podcast listeners. I hope that this episode has been a gift to you. You have some practical handles. We definitely have an assignment, and we should do a friend audit every year. So
yes, always changing.
Always changing.
But so, thanks for being in my core.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for being in my core. So we're encouraging everyone to do a friend audit. And also, this is the hard question. Who is in your circles that probably should not be there? Friends, we go there, and I am so glad that you are part of this community. If you have been blessed by any of the podcast, I'm encouraging you to subscribe so you don't miss any of the content. If you like the podcast, leave a positive review because it helps. And if you enjoy this podcast, it is free for you, but please listen to the ads because the ads help pay for the show. Love you. Can't wait for our next episode, and we'll see you on the other side. Take care.